So taking the success and popularity of tabletop at PAX South, we thought, well, this is popular content, people want it, why don't we do a show that's just tabletop? So just board games, card games, miniatures games, in-person games like Werewolf and whatnot, and do a whole show around that. And the idea caught on, and we decided to go for it. So looking forward to it.
Tabletop games are a really big part of my life. It's like it's one of very few things that I ever agreed with my dad on, was that, you know, board games are rad.
Back in the day, the original PAX was a fan festival for Penny Arcade that had some video games and computer games.
My Phalar and I have always really just, you know, pushed for there to be a space for tabletop at the show. Even though it's a video game show, it really is a gaming show.
Yeah, so I wasn't here for the very first PAX, but Jerry and Mike have both told me how when they were first laying out the whole show, there was like an internal struggle where how much, if at all, tabletop would get to have its own footprint.
I just happened to walk by a tabletop exhibitor, potentially, and talked to them about this show that we were putting on. And they said, well, we're a tabletop company. Is this something that would be appropriate for us to come to? And I said, absolutely. It's going to have video games, computer games, and tabletop games, which was a new thing that pretty much invented on the spot right there.
And now it's like super obvious and common, right? Like at South, like the tabletop area is its own show. It's a convention within a convention.
We actually devoted an entire hallway at the time, that was pretty much a lot of space, to tabletop, to the extent that we had to go out and buy the tables, card tables, from Fred Meyer and just bring them in ourselves. And just like that, tabletop became a part of PAX.
Tissue paper.
Either. Doesn't matter.
I'll get the porcelain later.
So right when we were launching PAX was the beginning of that tabletop renaissance, and a big part of the reason for that was those tabletop games, board games specifically, started to make the transition from the table to the console.
You know, our theory from the jump, with even at the first PAX, was that if we provided a space for people to play tabletop games, eventually these people who thought they weren't board gamers would realize that what they actually like are systems. They like interesting systems that they can interact with and manipulate and succeed at.
And so you can look at the original Xbox and the 360 taking Catan, Ticket to Ride, right? Traditional Euro board games that were blowing up in the tabletop space, but got a huge audience on consoles, and then eventually mobile devices where it blew up, right?
And I think that where there used to be a really bright line between those things, there's a lot of cross-pollination, I think, between those forms now.
I've done a lot of conventions, none nearly on this scale, but just playing games with people that I probably would have never met in my day-to-day life. And with board games, you know, everything it's an entire world existing within a cardboard box. And any way to bring in more people to share those experiences, I don't know, that's cool. And that's cool that they're doing that.
I think PAX is a great audience for tabletop because you have this collection of gamers who are really willing to try a lot of different styles of games. People who might sign up for a tournament for something like, you know, Catan or Terra Mystica that's really involved, will also pick up a game like, you know, Cards Against Humanity or Cyanide and Happiness or Yukon Salami.
So every PAX has a competition for independent developers of games. So at PAX South, we wanted to also have that service to the individual developer and give them the free space that the Indie Showcase provides. And so since it already had a strong tabletop theme, why not make it a tabletop Indie Showcase?
It's funny, because I'll be on the show floor and people will be like, "Oh, you're just like walking around the show," and it's like, yes, I want to go to PAX too. I like PAX as well. I would also like to go, you know, when possible. But I often find myself over in the board game tabletop section. I want to see what people are getting out of their bags, get a sense of what the next game I'm going to play is. And I usually get that information from a PAX show.
That would be awesome. Well, I mean, I'm not... Yeah, let's get on this.
So, welcome to Yukon Salon. My name is David Fudin. I'm here as part of the Tabletop Indie Showcase with my game Yukon Salon. It is a card game where you are styling the hairdos of bears and the beards of lumberjacks, which surprisingly are one and the same thing. It's thinking about a beard game where you would style your beard. So I thought at first maybe you have like a card that was somebody's face, and maybe you put hair around it. Maybe you have different decks that you use to like grow it and then style it. And I was just sort of brainstorming ideas and sketched out a little idea of like the face card with the hair under it. And I jotted down the title idea, Beardos. It's not the greatest title, but I was just kind of brainstorming. But seeing it written down and out of my head, I realized it could be mispronounced bear doos. And I was like, oh, that's not going to work. That's bear doos, which are bear hairdos. It's like, oh, wait a minute. And I drew a little picture of the bear with the beard on his head, and I was like, oh, that's pretty funny. I think this is the game now.
My name is Joshua Garrett. I am the co-creator of Random Encounters, and we're here showing off our board game to an insane number of people. So Random Encounters is a co-op RPG card game. It's a real easy to pick up and play. It's kind of like a super simplified Dungeons & Dragons, or some people have called it like a co-op Munchkin. It's a co-op RPG and role-playing game mechanics broken down to their bare basics so that you can just open the box and go on a quest. Everyone talks about how they don't have time to play the bigger, heavier stuff. Just to have that option of going on a grand quest without it taking up your entire evening has really appealed to people. You know, I had this experience with Dungeons & Dragons or something else really heavy back in the day, and now I can introduce people into this whole new world of gaming.
Do you think you'll ever add another PAX to the lineup?
The tabletop aspect of the show has only grown, every year since we started. In fact, look back in the tabletop area. That's a convention by itself, that one part of the show. Eventually you have to look at that and say, is there something that PAX can say about that, a show that is just that? And now it's gotten to the point where this part of PAX, I think, really deserves to have its own show.
That's why we're doing Unplugged. It's an area that there's a lot of growth. The exhibitors want us to add more space. The attendees want us to do more stuff. The industry is on fire, so we're like, oh, why don't we just pull it out and make its own show? And it won't detract from the other shows. Everyone's like, oh, are you not doing tabletop at the other shows? It's doing tabletop. It's doing all the tabletop we've been doing at the other shows, plus its own little side event.
We're going to find out how big it's going to be. So yeah, it's a PAX, right? So everything that you expect at a PAX is going to be there. But it's also an opportunity to look at what we have been doing and maybe do something a little bit different, since it is a unique show, right? So instead of music, maybe we do premiere live role playing, right? Acquisitions Incorporated and whatnot. Maybe instead of some of our large panel discussions, we do large scale games, right? Like Darker Skies and whatnot. It's just an opportunity to really service the tabletop community.
Because that's where I'm from, the end, and I get to pick where the shows go. And I'm in charge of the shows, and I get to pick where they go, so I'm putting them in my hometown. No, there were a couple cities and a couple locations, and a lot of our research data, a lot of our player data, a lot of the exhibitor data pointed to the Northeast, and luckily Philly was where it all the stars aligned, and I'm really, really glad it turned out that way.